What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. It's a special episode as today we are going to be previewing the upcoming Senior Bowl. It's finally Senior Bowl week. I'm here today with Mander Manny. Manny, how are you doing?
Feeling pretty good. How about you? I'm
Yeah, I'm
excited.
feeling pretty good myself. I'm excited. I know we're both going to be there in Mobile this week. We've got a lot of players to watch and a bunch of players that definitely can move themselves up in the draft process through this week. I know today we're gonna be going over our most our favorite players that we're looking forward to watching at each position. So yeah, do you want to let's just get started, and why not start with probably one of the more intriguing positions to watch, quarterback, because we have some really good quarterback prospects coming to Mobile this week. Yeah, who are you most excited to see in Mobile?
Well, I think me and everyone else is they're waiting to see how Mike Penix does, but not only him, but Bo Nix as well. I think them
Yeah.
being on the same team, I kind of gave for 2 for 1 there, but that's mainly the QB attraction there. But
Yeah.
I feel like Mike Penix has a lot to prove, just to get that sour taste out of his mouth. I think if he has a good week and performs well during his reps in the game, I think he can elevate his stock a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely think my answer was Penix too, but Penix, I think, definitely right now is kind of the quarterback that has the widest range of different outcomes, I want to say, in the draft. I've seen him, he could definitely go round one. There's definitely people that have said that he can go round one. And I've seen other things where some people have him day three. So I think that's what some NFL teams have him as right now. I think some teams probably have him as a round one guy. Some of them don't even have him as a day two guy. So I think Michael Penix definitely has the most to prove out of any quarterback in this class at the Senior Bowl. But kind of a more underrated guy that I want to talk about a little bit is Michael Pratt, because I know he's starting to get a lot of hype as well, possibly
Yeah.
being a round two pick or maybe round three pick. And after your first round guys like Caleb and Drake May, Jane Daniels, and Nix, Penix, and whatever, Michael Pratt is a guy that some people are even moving up into the top five of their quarterback rankings. What are your thoughts on Pratt? And what are you looking forward to see out of him this week?
I think we first talked about Pratt when we did an earlier show with Josh, and I watched some more tape on him, and I can't see I can see why he was a little bit slept on, but obviously with the program that he's on and the other quarterback prospects in the class too. But he has the makings of everything you want in a quarterback. It's just the compared to the other profiles and of the other prospects. So I think if he has a good week, and if he's considering that he's still with Penix and Nix, I think if he outshines them, I think he'll definitely be one of those draft prizes that we'll be seeing come April.
Yeah, Pratt definitely. You mentioned if if he does outshine like the Knickses and the Penixes, I think some teams would have him above both of those guys. I really think the Senior Bowl is huge for those three. Spencer Rattler is also named to watch as he's starting to get a little bit of hype over the course of the last week. But yeah, anything else you want to say about the quarterback position?
I think we pretty much covered it for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on to running back. This running back class, we've got a bunch of different guys. You've got Rasheen Ali out of Marshall. You got Marshawn Lloyd out of USC, plus some other ones. I'm pulling up the list now. Ray Davis out of Kentucky, Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. There's a lot of different guys with pretty much this running back class in general for this draft. I feel there's no one really elite at a particular trait, but there's a wide variety of different styles for running back. I really feel like if you're a team and you can go out and you want to get like a solid rotational running back in your lineup, you can find one for pretty much any scheme in this draft class. There's a really large variety of it. Who are you most looking forward to see it in Mobile at the running back position?
So actually, that was one of my latest pieces. I'm doing a series on breaking down each position of
Mm-hmm.
who I want to see in the Senior Bowl. My last one was the running backs. So I highlighted three. I'll just say the first one is not too many people are gonna know the name, but Kimani Vidal. I think
Yeah.
out of
Mm-hmm.
out of Troy, I think he's going to be a pretty solid and serviceable back. I think he'll showcase his vision. I think that's one of his highlights of his profile. His vision really shows because he won't really dance around the pocket, dance behind the line of scrimmage too much. He'll find a hole and burst through. And I highlighted a lot of his other traits too. If you want to check out my article on Mander Manny, it's one of my pinned tweets, so just go check it out.
Yeah, so far we're 2 for 2 because that's who I had as well. Combining with Troy, he had over 1,600 yards last year, 14 touchdowns in 2023. He hits the line of scrimmage with speed and explosion a lot. He doesn't have like the quickest long distance speed in my opinion, but he can still beat the secondary when the secondary is not taking great angles at him. And also, like you mentioned, he has great vision as well. You can navigate through between the tackles pretty well as well. So that was my guy, running back. I mentioned some of the others like Ray Davis and Rasheen Ali, of course, 2 other guys that are expected to go probably early day 3. I want to say maybe 5th round, probably around there. But this running back position, again, compared to last year when you had guys like Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft class, this running back group is not that good, not at that level. But I do think that there is a wide variety that you can choose from in terms of just getting solid rotational running backs. Because I don't know many, maybe Braylon Allen probably, and I haven't watched Jonathan Brooks yet, but I know Braylon Allen could possibly like carry a full workload in the backfield. But beyond that, I don't know many running backs in this class that can. But anything else you want to say on the running back position?
I also do want to mention Jalen Wright. He was in three-headed committee there, but he did post some really explosive stats. He had some explosive tape on there. He's kind of has a different running style than both Lloyd and Vidal, but I think he can move around in there. He's good north to south. I think that's going to showcase as well in the Senior Bowl. So I just wanted to drop that in there.
Yeah, he's definitely another guy that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. I know we've got a lot of them to get through. So moving on to the wide receiver position, this position is definitely, I would say, the strength of this draft class. There's a bunch of guys that you can choose from. And at the Senior Bowl, there's going to be a ton of guys that are definitely going day 2. Some of them could maybe even sneak into day 1, I could say. I could see, but who are you looking forward to seeing most at the wide receiver position? Because there's a bunch of players.
And like you said, there's a lot. I'll say most. I'll just start naming Anaya Smith. I definitely want to see him. I think he's explosive and versatile. I don't think his name is really talked about. As far as top 10, top 15 wide receivers in this class goes. But when you watch the tape, that should really tell you something about how deep this class is. I think he's pretty versatile. I think he definitely has a role in the NFL. And I think it'll show in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, a guy for me, Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. I know I've mentioned him, I think on the last the preview did with Josh too, but this guy, as a Gators fan, I've watched every game that Pearsall has played in over the last 2 years at Florida, and there's just something about him. His route running is super crisp. He can high point the ball. He's got really sticky hands. His yak isn't incredible, I would say, after the catch, but the stuff that he can do off of his release and running routes and stuff is first round worthy. Overall, I have like a mid to high second on him, but he's another guy where you're talking about like the second round wide receivers where there's probably like 8, 9, maybe even 10 of them that deserve a second round grade. So, some of the other guys, Johnny Wilson is going to be someone to watch because he's just going to look massive compared to some of these other wide receivers in the Senior Bowl. And then some others, Jamari Thrash, Malachi Corley, could be sneaking their way into the second round as well. So, any other guys you want to mention at wide receiver?
I feel like I don't know how I missed him at first, but a lot of people are going to be watching Xavier Legette. I think he's put a lot of exciting stuff on film. I think if the measurables line up and they're consistent, that's even more of a plus. He's drawn DK Metcalf comps, and that's pretty.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So if we see that,
Yeah.
That could be a show.
Yeah, I completely forgot that he's going to be there as well. And I know he's a little bit on the older side of the wide receivers in this class, but I mean, he can definitely, with his athletic ability, could definitely sneak into late day one, especially with some of these playoff teams like the Chiefs and the Bills too, who are going to be needing wide receivers this offseason. So I think we could definitely see a late wide receiver run in the first round on night one, and Xavier Legette could definitely be in that conversation of getting drafted there. Moving on to tight end, I think there's not a lot of tight ends going to Mobile this year, but one guy that stood out to me was Jaheim Bell out of Florida State. He could definitely be a target for Washington if they were to select him with their third round pick, or if they were willing to trade back into like later of the second round using one of their earlier second round picks. I definitely could see Bell as an option. Well, who's a guy that you're interested in?
Guy I know we talked about earlier too was Ben Sinnott.
Yeah.
So I think he's just an all around guy. He can block. He can make those extra efforts to make those plays, catches, or just in the run game. And I think he's an all around guy, an all around football player, all around locker room guy that you want to have. I think once he starts nailing those interviews too, his stock is going to rise. Right now, I think it's like a fourth round grade on him.
Yeah, I think somewhere around there.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely going to rise, especially given how thin this tight end class is.
Yeah, this is not the greatest tight end class. I'd say it's definitely one of the weaker ones beyond Brock Bowers. So there's not really that much to talk about. I know Theo Johnson out of Penn State is going to be a guy that some people are going to be watching. I also had AJ Barner on my list as well, out of Michigan. He made some nice plays during the CFP, and then you mentioned Ben Sinnott as well. So Sinnott, he's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. I know he got like the best fullback in the country award, which he can definitely do more than that, more than just block, which is kind of like what your fullback thinks of. But I mean, you look at guys like Kyle Juszczyk in the league who play fullback, but really can go out and run routes and stuff. So Sinnott could definitely be a guy that could sneak up into the third, fourth round, and maybe like a coach that was once under Kyle Shanahan in that offense. I can't think of one off the top of my head that's currently a head coach, but I definitely think some of the former Shanahan assistants could be interested in a guy like Sinnott if they want to have a guy like Kyle Juszczyk on their team, like what San Francisco has. So that's what I have on tight end. Moving on to the offensive line, where just like wide receiver, I'd say the offensive line, especially on the offensive tackle side, is definitely one of the stronger positions and one of the deeper positions in this draft class. A guy I had was Graham Barton out of Duke. I kind of want to see him. I was kind of confused because they have him listed on the Senior Bowl roster, but for a second they didn't. So I think he's going to be in Mobile. I want to say. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 95% sure he's going to be in Mobile. He's been like the stock with him. He's been kind of quiet lately, I want to say, especially when you look at guys. I know for him, it's mostly, is he going to play guard in the league? Is he going to play tackle? I'm leaning towards guard. And when your value is around the same guys like Patrick Paul and Jordan Morgan, the guys like Morgan and Paul, a lot more people are talking about than Barton. So I'm kind of curious to see how Barton's going to look at guard, because I know the coaching staffs are going to make him play guard there. So who's a tackle that you're interested in Mobile?
He's listed at tackle, but I'm not sure if they'll probably put him at guard. Dominic Pooney, I feel like he's pretty underrated. This draft class is kind of underrated as far as tackles go. That really isn't the main focus, but there's some talented tackles out there. Talius Puaga, I think he's not probably, I wouldn't say he's generational, but I think he's a guy that you don't have any regrets taking within the top 10 maybe. I think he could. My player comp was Penix. He's probably not as prolific as him, but he has a lot of the similar qualities and traits that you would want in a tackle or guard. There's a lot of tackles in there that could be guards. Fautanu, and then Let's see who else. Yeah, but there's some versatile guys, but I think Cooney. I think if he can stand out, I think he can elevate his draft stock as well.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of like similar to wide receiver. There's going to be a lot of these tackles that are going to try and keep themselves within the early second round. I know Troy Fautanu is going to probably, I would say he's probably going to end up going on night one, just based on how well he's like his draft stock has definitely gone up over the last month or so, and I expect him to have a good Senior Bowl. And if he does, I definitely could see him. And if he does good in the interviews as well, I definitely could see him going in that late round one range. Um, so now, kind of moving on to the inside offensive line a little bit. Well, actually, one more thing on the outside with the tackles. Jordan Morgan's a guy. I think I mentioned him already, but Jordan Morgan's a guy that I'm really interested to see because I think Morgan could definitely be. I think he's definitely in play for Washington if both of the second round picks are kept, and Washington picks at both of those points in the draft. I think Jordan Morgan. There's a very high chance Washington selects him. So that's a guy I'm going to be really interested in watching. But moving on to the inside, where there's also some pretty good players. Talked about Fautanu, who could possibly move into guard, but Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon, I'm really interested in watching because he's the best center in this class, in my opinion, and I I know I've seen some hype about him going possibly even in round one. So I haven't watched him on film yet, but I'm excited to see. I'm gonna try and get to him right before the Senior Bowl. So then once I get there, I can like talk to him and stuff. But yeah, who's an inside line guy that you're interested in watching?
I'll go who I feel is probably the maybe second best center, Cedric Van Pran. I feel like he was really an anchor in that UGA line there. I feel like a lot of teams they're going to want to anchor the middle of their offensive line. I know one team and specifically would definitely want to take a look at that. And I also want to talk about Cooper Beebe.
Yeah.
I feel like he's solid. He's one of the better interior offensive linemen, but his current draft projection isn't really reflecting that. I feel like after this upcoming week, I think he'll definitely be one of those draft risers too.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys on this offensive line that I feel like, or at least the offensive line roster Senior Bowl, that I don't think are getting as much praise as they deserve. And Vive and Powers Johnson are definitely right now two of them, in my opinion. So both of those guys I'm going to be interested in watching. But yeah, any other thoughts on the offensive line? I know it's a pretty big position. So any other thoughts?
For the most part, that's pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball. I want to start at edge. I want to start at edge. Well, there's some guys I'm interested in, especially at the edge position, because I mean we've talked about it kind of like on Twitter and stuff. The battle in the trenches at the Senior Bowl is going to be like a warfare in there.
Absolutely.
Because you have on one side you have like guys like Jordan Morgan, Troy Fautanu, Patrick Paul, and on the inside like Jackson Powers Johnson, Cooper Beebe, and all that. And then defensively you have Latu at edge, and you have guys like Byron Murphy and Tavonjay Sweat going. I believe he's going to be there, right?
I think so.
I don't know why I don't see his. Oh, yep, I see him. Okay, yeah, Tavonjay Sweat as well on the inside. So there's a lot of talent in the trenches, and at edge rusher specifically, I think Latu is going to have one of the more intriguing. He's gonna perform well on the field, but I'm more interested in seeing how he's going to do interview wise and the reports that have come out of that because of the medicals and all of that. So I don't think as of now teams will want to pick him in the top 10, top 15 just because of all the other edge rushers that they could possibly choose. But with Latu, I'm kind of curious to see how his medicals are going to go. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work at the Senior Bowl. If I thought these guys get medicals taken, I want to say I'm not entirely sure on that, but with the interview process and all that, I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out for Latu.
Definitely, yeah. I think that's pretty much his biggest concern right now. But the player, the talent, off the charts.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any other guys, edge rushers? I know for me, Darius Robinson could be a guy. I think we talked about him on the stream with Josh as well. But Darius Robinson could be a guy that could move into the early day 3 and possibly even day 2 range. Any guys you're interested in?
I think Braswell. I think he's kind of on the borderline between day 1 or day 2, late day 1, early day 2. I think he's kind of a freak. So I think in one of those in those one-on-ones, I think he'll have a few clips that'll go viral, and people are like, "Whoa, who's this guy?" I think he's going to be one of those guys. I also want to see a little bit more of Jalen Harrell. I think not too many guys are high on him, including myself, because I did want to see more of him. So I think seeing in a different environment, and especially in those individual drills, I think that can kind of sway my opinion on him too.
Yeah. Another guy, I keep on picking Oregon players, but another guy I'm interested in is Brennan Dorless. I know he's kind of more of he has more positional versatility than some of these other guys, as he's played pretty much everywhere across the defensive line. Right. But Dorless, I'm kind of interested in seeing, because he's a guy that I think, because of his positional versatility across the entire defensive line, and his athleticism, I think he could definitely move into being an early day 2 pick. So that's a guy I'm interested in. Adisa Isaac out of Penn State is pretty good. A lot of people talk about Chop Robinson when you talk about Penn State edge rushers, but Adisa Isaac should be talked about more, because that guy could be going in round 2. We're saying a lot of players that could go round 2, but it's true, because this draft class, especially at some positions, are just like that stacked. We're going to see a lot of players that don't go on round 2 or in round 3 and fall later, that are round 2, round 3 values. So those two guys I'm pretty interested in. Interior wise, is there anyone you're looking at?
Let's see. Probably Tyler Davis. I mocked him to Washington a couple times, but that's because I wasn't really sure how the Jonathan Allen situation was going to go. Yeah. But I think that's a guy that I've been familiar with for some time now, and I've loved it. I love this tape. His analytics are great too. I think there's not too many. I think he graded pretty well in last season. Yeah, he had an 85.5 grade in last season, 82.9 the season before too, with almost 500 defensive snaps each. So I think the tape is there, the numbers are there. I think it's just a name recognition now. So I think once he starts putting himself out there, he'll probably have a couple of clips on some interior offensive linemen next week too. So I think he'll be circulating in the draft community too.
Yeah, two guys I'm interested in. I kind of mentioned them already, but the two guys from Texas, Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, both of them have the ability to impress scouts to go in the first round. I think they were the best defensive line duo in the country last year, or interior defensive line duo in the country. Byron Murphy, 19.6% pass rush win rate, and both of them had an 88 or above true pass rush grade. So both of these guys, they're on the same team too. So especially on game day, if you put them together, I can't wait to see that duo go to work, because that's going to be fun to watch and a show for everyone watching. So those two guys going to work, teammates at Texas over the last few years. I think I'm excited for both of them. So that's the interior. I'll say now, kind of going up a level to linebacker. The linebacker class this year, kind of similar to running back, I wouldn't say is wonderful. There's not really any true, I want to say, like, guy in front of the rest. I know Jeremiah Trotter can be talked about a little bit as the best linebacker. Peyton Wilson, who's going to be at the Senior Bowl, that's my guy. I'm excited to watch is Peyton Wilson. I think he's great in coverage, and especially for Washington, who needs linebackers that can cover, I think Peyton Wilson could be a guy in the 3rd round. Is there a linebacker you're excited to see in Mobile?
Yeah, that's one of my guys too. Especially, Ben Johnson is the coach. It was just specifically for Washington, but if Ben Johnson is the coach, and then he does bring some of his line staff, they were pretty high on Jack Hamill. So I think Peyton Wilson a little bit better, and I think he'll be an excellent fit. But just even if it's not in Washington, I think he'll just be an all around just not just a tackle magnet. He's basically everywhere on the field. Another player that I think is like that, Maris out of Notre Dame. He didn't grade too well against the run, but I think, and also he did have a couple missed tackles that really affected his analytic profile. But once you watch him on tape, I think he's one of those guys that are different makers. So I think once he's kind of shows that in-game ability that things that don't really show up on the stat sheets or in analytics, I think he'll make a name for himself too.
Yeah, and Cedric Gray too out of UNC will be a guy to watch too. I think as of right now, it's kind of like a day 3 guy. We'll see how well he does, but yeah. Oh, and also Tommy Eichenberg. I forgot he's going to be there.
Yeah,
he's a longtime Buckeye. So yeah, there's going to be some good linebackers in the Senior Bowl, but a position that's definitely deeper than that is corner this year, because especially at the Senior Bowl, I would say this is probably the deepest cornerback class the Senior Bowl has ever had. Just the talent that they have at corner, and it's similar to the to offensive line versus defensive line. Wide receiver against cornerback drills are going to be super fun to watch. A guy that I had was Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. I was kind of hesitant on him at first, but I'm starting to see the vision with him a little bit, and he's played 2 great seasons for the Rockets in Toledo, and I've even seen some people on social media recently have him as the best cornerback in the draft over guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry and Cooper DeJean. I don't think he's that good over, especially a guy like DeJean, but 17 pass breakups, which was 3rd in the country last year, is definitely pretty good. So, is there a corner you're looking forward to seeing?
I'm definitely. I want to see Mitchell as well, and just a lot of the knack on him is just that the competition that he's faced. I think there's not going to be any debate about the competition that he's going to be facing this week.
Yeah.
So I think that can definitely get put to rest. And then also was pretty high on Max Melton.
Yeah.
I think his ball skills. I really try not to stay away. I try to stay away from the just ball skills from corners, but just when you look at his ball skills, it's just amazing. He's this almost receiver like his brother Bo Melton. It's amazing. If you watch the tape, you'll see it. I think he'll have maybe a couple chances to make plays like that. Especially with some the QBs the QBs kind of play it safe, but I think maybe he'll have some opportunities. You don't really get too many interception opportunities, especially with the efficient QBs like actually, are they going to be on the same team? I'm not sure.
Nix and Penix are on the same team. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. So I mean, that's a pretty efficient. Not going to have a lot of interception opportunities, but I think maybe in one-on-ones he'll showcase his abilities to mirror pretty well, and then kind of break on the ball. That's something that I feel like is pretty great as well. His break on the ball is one of the best in the class, I feel.
Yeah. And another guy too is, in my opinion, probably one of the best slot corners in this draft, Mike Sanders. Still, he had a great college football playoff for Michigan, both of the games, and he's an experienced guy. He's played a lot of snaps in college, and especially the quarterbacks are going to take it safe. They're not going to throw some risky 50-50 balls, but I think Sanders still could be a guy that could maybe pick something off of one of these more not so great quarterbacks on this roster. So Sanders still is a guy that I think could definitely improve his stock into being a round 2 guy. But beyond that, I think Kyrie Jackson could be a guy to watch. Just going on the list, Kalen Carson, Rakestraw got hurt apparently, and he's not gonna be participating. But I still think I was kind of confused. I don't know if he's still going to be in Mobile. I know he's not going to be practicing if he does go, but I know that I think he hurt his ankle or something, I want to say. It was a lower body injury that forced him out. In terms of and then Kalen King as well is another guy that will be fun to watch. So, but in terms of safety, I think we can both agree there's probably 3. There's 3 that I think we're going to say that the 2 at Georgia are going to be great to watch.
Absolutely.
Bullard and Smith, and then Cam Kitchens
Oh,
at
yeah.
Miami, who's arguably the best safety in this class. So I think it's really those three at safety. That'll be fun to watch. We'll say we'll talk about Kitchens for a little bit. What about Kitchens do you like the most?
I think just his ability. I think all his instincts really show up on tape.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I feel he has a good football IQ. That helps him move around the field faster. That's an underrated quality. You're kind of not second guessing. This is the right play. Am I able to bite on this? I feel like he has a pretty good feel for the game and it's improved over the years. And yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I definitely think his improvement over the years is probably what impresses me most. And I know between him and Tyler Nubin, those probably the top two safeties for most people in this class, whatever order you want to put them. But Kinship's athletic ability is something that, and his instincts is definitely something that he has as an advantage over a guy like Tyler Nubin. So, yeah, those are the safeties that I have. But yeah, that's pretty much a kind of a quick rundown on the roster. Is there any other guys that we haven't mentioned that you want to talk about for a little bit?
I feel like for the most part we try to cover all of them. We did talk about a lot of names here.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part we got them pretty much covered.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of guys that definitely a lot of day two guys that are trying to get over the hump over some of the other guys that are kind of in the same cluster as them, especially at wide receiver and especially at DB. I want to say there's kind of like clusters of people, and at tackle as well, and kind of that Jordan Morgan, Patrick Paul, Graham Barton-ish tier. I feel like who's going to separate themselves out from the pack is probably going to be one of the big storylines throughout the week. But yeah, we're both going to be at the Senior Bowl. As we wrap things up here, where can people find you and find your work?
You can follow me on X or Twitter at Commander Season. That's Commander SZN, or just type in Mander Manny. I'll pop up and just follow me. I'll follow you back.
Yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode. Not this week's episode actually, because I forgot it's Senior Bowl week, so it's gonna be different. This episode's coming out on the Sunday morning of the Senior Bowl week. Then we're gonna have episodes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, recapping each day. There's gonna be an episode the following Sunday, recapping the Senior Bowl game, and then also be on the lookout in case the Lions lose to the 49ers later today. Be on the lookout for a Ben Johnson possibly emergency pod, because I feel like if the Lions lose, who do you got in the game in the conference championships before we go? Start with the AFC, Ravens and Chiefs.
I got the Ravens. I got to go with the MVP Lamar here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my pick as well. And Niners Lions, I know we probably both want, for the reason of Ben Johnson becoming the Commanders coach, you probably both want the Niners to win. But who do you have in this game?
Yeah, just a selfish reason, but I do want the Niners to win just so we can speed things along with the coaching process. I think it should be a fun game.
Yeah, I have the Niners as well. It's going to be a fun day of games. And then if the Lions do lose, I do feel like Ben Johnson at some point this week is going to be named the Washington head coach. Fingers crossed on that, but be on the lookout for an emergency pod for that as well. So that'll do it for today's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys in the next one. Peace.